This is Ace Car, and I'm doing this video to pay tribute to the great Kingda Ka. And I've had some wonderful memories on Kingda Ka, being there on the first day, in which I was literally the first one of the first ones to ride the ride within 10 minutes. And I'll never forget that experience, getting on that front seat on the right side. And years after, like 20 years in a row, I've ridden it so many times, hundreds of times. So I gracefully have ridden Ka thousands of times throughout my lifetime. And as for Zumanjaro, there's another one that I cherish. I've ridden that hundreds of times in the last few years that it's been open. So this is all in tribute to Ka. Long live the king.
So my first ride on Kingda Ka was on its final day on November 10th. It was truly a day like no other. Getting to see so many different enthusiasts come together to celebrate one ride was amazing to me, and it really made me feel like more of an enthusiast that day. It is a day that I'll never forget, with a coaster that was like no other, that really made me love this hobby even more than I already do. So I guess this is really a thank you to Kingda Ka for making me love coasters and for everything it's done for all the other enthusiasts out there.
I think for me, one of my favorite memories from Kingda Ka was on, funny enough, one of its last days of operation. I got to go on it front row for the first and last time with my good friend Cam, Hyper Thrills. It was a really great memory of that ride. It was great seeing like the whole park in a completely like different like point of view, like from the top, and like being able to see it all like perfectly fine was like really cool. It's a ride I miss a lot already, and I hope what replaces it is even better.
I have so many great memories of Kingda Ka, but one I'll always remember is in 2005, I was among the lucky first few people to ride Ka on a preview day before opening to the general public. I was so scared, but it was such a blast riding it that I was hooked immediately. I've had this shirt since that day. I loved riding Ka day or night, but I always loved riding it at sunset because the view was just so breathtaking. I rode it right up until the final day it ran, and I will forever miss Kingda Ka. Ka will always hold a special place in my heart. Long live the king.
Oh my god, hi. My favorite Kingda Ka and Zumanjaro memories have to be their first rides. For Kingda Ka, front row, boost mode, first train of the day is one of the most gnarliest experiences I've ever had. And as for Zumanjaro, I've just hated drop towers until I rode that thing. But nothing will ever come close to hearing this.
The first time I rode Kingda Ka was in 2018. It was one of the first highly intense coasters that I've ever been on, actually. And I remember actually shaking in the line, being so nervous. Because, it's a little intimidating with that, tall coaster standing up in front of you. And I remember loving it, getting off the ride for the first time and absolutely loving it. And what I love about it now, or what I loved about it after riding it a million different times, was that it was just that kind of coaster that just kept giving you the same amount of adrenaline every time. It never got old. That's what was special about it. And every time I got on it, I'd be nervous, but every time I got off, I'd love it. And that's why I'm gonna miss it.
Hey guys, so my favorite memory of Kingda Ka is the fog night ride that I had with Colin and Ace and everybody and Phil. That was a fun memory of Kingda Ka. That was one of my favorite rides, and it was a ride that I will never forget.
I remember being 7 or 8 years old and flipping through the Guinness World Records book, and I came across this page which talked about the world's tallest and fastest roller coaster. And just like any other record, it seemed so far away, so unachievable. I thought I'd never be a part of that. But I brought it up to my parents, and they said, New Jersey, it's only 3 hours away. We could go to Six Flags. That could be a trip someday. And I remember begging them for weeks after that, please, let's go to Six Flags Great Adventure. We're gonna ride the world's tallest and fastest roller coaster. Please, 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 please. And they agreed, and I'll never forget that trip. It was such an important part of my childhood. We got there first thing and ran to it. and we were one of the first people in line, and I started crying because I was so scared. And I remember my mom comforting me and saying, you gotta get on this ride, because I've been talking about it every day for months. It really meant so much to me, and she knew that. But I was scared. It was a big deal for me. But I got on it, and I remember as soon as that launch off hit, it was just all smiles, up and down, over the top hat. I was having such a great time. And I remember pulling back into the station, just unable to control my excitement. It was just truly a special moment. But I went down to Abu Dhabi and rode Formula Rosa, the last true over 100 miles per hour hydraulic launch left. Highly recommended if you want to relive the glory days of Kingda Ka.
Hello. I have to say my favorite memory of Zumanjaro was on July 4th of 2023. I went after work to, meet with some friends, and we decided to make Zumanjaro our last ride at night. As we were going up, the fireworks started going off, which was a fantastic view. And, just making that, the view with the fireworks, you just can't beat that. So, also to just be with friends too. Now, my favorite Kingda Ka memory was on November 18th of 2023, the day before it closed for the season. I got a rollback, and that was fantastic. That I got one. I was going nuts. I don't know about the people around me, but yeah, I was like, oh my god, I got a rollback. And yeah, that has to be my favorite Ka memory, even though I have a ton of favorite Ka memories. So that being said, long live the king.
I only got one ride in Kingda Ka right before they shut it down to add Zumanjaro to the tower. It was front row, and I was 5 years old. It was really crazy. I remember it being very shaky and tall. It was shut down like all day because it was broken, but they finally opened it at the end of the day right before I left, and I got my one ride on it, and I'll remember it until the day I die.
I'd like to share with you one of my favorite memories of Kingda Ka and Zumanjaro. Well, for Kingda Ka, I really like the launch, how fast it goes up the 456-foot hill, and going down to the next hill. And then for Zumanjaro, being at the top where Kingda Ka's train goes on top of the coaster, and seeing Philadelphia from there.
I wanted to show you a picture from October 26th. Here's me, my grandfather, my father. My grandfather's possibly last ride because he's getting up there in age, high 70s, almost 80 at this point, but it was really good. That day was amazing, and I got a few rides with him, possibly his last few ones, obviously now. Thank you. Let me show this video again, and long live the king.
My favorite Kingda Ka memories was when I rode the coaster multiple times in one day. My favorite Zumanjaro moment was when I was hanging up in the sky at 400 feet as if Rafiki was lifting Simba up in the sky. Circle of life.
So I can't pin a single memory on Kingda Ka, but it just has to be all of my friends that I've taken on that ride for the first time. I've taken my friends, I've taken their parents, I've taken random strangers on that ride for the first time, and just seeing their reaction to Kingda Ka just would always make my night. And for Zumanjaro in 2022, I got stuck at the top for 10 minutes. Not only was the view absolutely amazing, but it was the first time that Kingda Ka went while I was on Zumanjaro, and that was the most exhilarating feeling ever because you just felt everything start to like shake and sway. It was so fun. Long live the king.
My favorite memory of riding Kingda Ka was when I did it front row with my sister. We were, as soon as we launched, I swear all that wind was hitting our face at over 100 miles per hour. And I swear, as soon as we hit the brake run, I had tears in my eyes, and then my sister, she almost like lost her contacts. She thought she did because she had like contacts in her eyes. But that was probably really like a fun memory that I enjoyed, But long live the king.
I visited Great Adventure 3 times between 2021 and 2024, and all 3 times Kingda Ka was closed due to maintenance. Then in late October 2024, I found out from a friend that Kingda Ka was likely closing at the end of the season for good. From there, I decided to take a spontaneous 7-hour trip to New Jersey with 2 of my friends to have one last chance of finally being able to ride the King of Coasters. That trip was worth it because I got 4 incredible rides on it, including 2 in the front row 1 week before the ride closed for good. I got to hang out with some incredible people that day as well, which made my first ever rides on Kingda Ka one of my favorite memories of 2024. Long live the King!
Kingda Ka has been a huge part of my childhood, and just my life in general. Here's a picture of my first ride in Kingda Ka in October of 2019. I was at the park and I was with my mom and I said I want to go on that ride. We left my dad and my brother and went on the ride. It was one of the scariest experiences of my life. I was so scared, but I loved it so much and I just did it every time I went to the park. Here's a picture of my latest ride, which was my last ride, which was my first front row ride with my friend Liam. One of the coolest experiences of my life. So the memories on Kingda Ka, I would just say, is growth. I mean, you can see from when I did my first ride to when I've done my last ride that I've really grown up with the ride.
The first time I got to ride Kingda Ka was back in 2023. I went on the very last weekend it was open for that year, and I got to ride it a total of 16 times over the course of 2 days. I went with a friend and we got to share some really good memories on the coaster. My best memory I ever had on it was the very last ride. It was during golden hour. We went over the top hat. I saw the sun on the left of me. Then we went down the spiral, and as we were going over the airtime hill, everything just seemed perfect with the golden sky going over the park. I also got to ride Zumanjaro on one of the days. I didn't have the most best memory on it because we're literally the only persons on the ride because no one was going to go ride it. I'm surprised it was even open. I'm so glad I got to ride it.
So my favorite memory of Ka has to be my first ever ride I had on it. I was scared for many years and it became a running gag in the coaster community. When would I ride Ka? So I waited till I hit 1,000 subscribers. Finally got on it. Very wary in the station. I think I was thrown in row 4, row 5. I threw my hands up and I started screaming the F word over and over. And it was just like ingrained into my memory that my first ride was like 2019. So I really didn't have that much longer to experience it. And I made sure to get every moment I could out of it till the last day.
So for my best memories for Ka and Zumanjaro, for Kingda Ka, I would say that when I had a rain ride on it in the front row was probably my best memory. Sure, it was painful since getting pelted in the face with rain, which feels like needles going 128 miles an hour. It was painful, but it was still fun nonetheless. But for Zumanjaro, I would say my probably best memory I had on it was when I marathoned it about 7 times in a row to end the night. But with all that being said, long live the King and Zumanjaro.
My best memory of Zumanjaro, easily without a doubt, would have to be Thrill-a-thon 2023, when I got my 2000th ride on that ride, my favorite ride in the park, with my brother, Colin, and everyone else that attended. Easily, head above shoulders, the best. Miss you, Zoo. Fond memories that will live on forever.
The first time that I saw Kingda Ka was in July of 2021 for my first visit to Great Adventure. And of course, my friend dragged me on that as the first ride that I've ever been on at Great Adventure, which I was extremely scared to go on it at first. I was like, why is it so tall? Am I gonna, I knew it was gonna be safe and everything, but I was like, why is it so tall? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna hate this. But ever since that, I've loved going on Kingda Ka. Every single time I go to Great Adventure, I ran on it if it was open. And yeah, and then the last time I went to Kingda Ka was in 2024 in November. I just remember being so emotional, like this is the last time I'm ever gonna experience this crazy launch, and I just miss it so much.
Kingda Ka truly meant so much to me as a coaster enthusiast. It was no doubt the best 28-second experience on the planet. Some of my favorite memories ever from Kingda Ka was my first ever ride. Once I experienced it for the first time, there was no going back, and it truly showed me that I could ride anything. Kingda Ka is the reason I am where I am today as a coaster enthusiast. The ride delivered pure thrills, joy, and excitement that I could only dream of. Not to mention, riding the world's tallest drop tower, Zumanjaro, was just absolutely incredible, and the views you would catch of the park from the top were just breathtaking. Probably my all-time favorite memory from Kingda Ka was taking my final rides on it during its closing weekend. That truly has to be my most favorite and special theme park memory ever. With that being said, I cannot wait for the future ahead of Six Flags Great Adventure, and long live the King. Peace!
2007. I'm 14 years old, first time back at Great Adventure. My friends are like, yo, let's go on Kingda Ka. I'm like, what? Now? Yeah. God. 2 hours waiting on the line, Jamaican guys operating the ride. If you've ever been to Great Adventure, you know there's a whole bunch of Jamaicans that be at the park. This dude would say, "Scooby!" every time the coaster would launch. Me and my friend, front row seat. Man, that launch, when we launched, that green and blue track segment, blended into one color. Get up at the top, seeing cars that look like ants, saying words that I'm not gonna say. Man, this coaster, there's not gonna be another coaster like this.
My favorite memory of Kingda Ka is definitely my first ride, and the reason that is because it was a walk-on, and it was extremely terrifying to me. Rolling out onto the launch track, I was extremely nervous, but then that launch took away all my fear. It kind of made me the roller coaster enthusiast that I am today. So I want to thank Kingda Ka for that.
I have a ton of great memories with Kingda Ka and Zumanjaro, from my first rides on it where I lost a contact lens, to getting the first train of the season in 2023, to riding it 11 times in a row without leaving the station, to riding it 3 times in the front row without leaving the station, and just riding it with all my great friends and other enthusiasts, especially on that last day back in November. Kingda Ka has just had a really special place in my heart ever since I was an enthusiast, and I'm just really, really sad to see it go.
I grew up in China, where the coaster community wasn't as established and information on coasters weren't really available. So I just rode coasters back then without really learning about them. But there was one ride in America, Kingda Ka, that I knew I had to go ride one day because it was so famous and it was the tallest and it was so cool. In 2018, my family and I moved to New Jersey. The first thing we did after settled down was drive to Great Adventure and experience this coaster of my dreams. And it was every bit as great as I hoped it would be. Zumanjaro also permanently got rid of my fear of drop towers. So that alone propelled me into the community of coaster enthusiasts I'm a part of today. And so yeah, thank you so much for being part of my life. I will always miss you.
Hello, my name is Nick. My favorite memory that I have of Kingda Ka specifically was in the 5th grade when I was 10. I rode it for the first time. It was terrifying, but I'm so glad I did it because looking back on it, it really kickstarted my enthusiast journey. I got this t-shirt, obviously it doesn't really fit anymore because that was quite a while ago, but I remember bringing it to show and tell and impressing all my friends that I rode the world's tallest roller coaster.
My favorite memory on Kingda Ka is just the absolute rush that you feel when you are accelerating to 128 miles per hour and on your way to the top. For anyone that has never been on it, or family members and friends that hadn't been on it, the best way I would always describe it is just like a rocket ship blasting off into space, especially when you go on it at night, and if it's a clear night when you get to the top. Looking for either New York or Philly was amazing, and definitely something that I will never ever forget.
It was near the end of the night at Six Flags Great Adventure, and I decided I wanted my final ride of the night to be on Kingda Ka. And I was on Kingda Ka, and although the ride operator wanted to go home, we kept on persistently chanting, "One more time! One more time!" He cycled us for about 9 times on Kingda Ka before he said enough is enough and told us we had to get off. I remember I even sang Ariana Grande's One Last Time, but changed the lyrics to be about wanting to get another ride on Kingda Ka.
Kingda Ka. Where do I even start with this attraction? Ever since I first heard about its height record as a kid, I thought it was one of the most iconic roller coasters anywhere on Earth. And that's something I've always stuck with until Kingda Ka's demise. After my first ride on that coaster, I knew it was the new most extreme roller coaster I've ever ridden, without a doubt. And I've ridden King's Dominion's Giga Coaster before then, and thought Kingda Ka was definitely more extreme than that. To conclude, I'll dearly miss those times I rode Kingda Ka from June 26th, 2022 to November 9th, 2024.
Living only 5 minutes away from Six Flags Great Adventure, saying Kingda Ka, I'm gonna go on that. Go on it for the first time this year. One of the craziest things ever. Sitting in that launch track, or like there, you just take off like a fighter jet down the launch track. You climb in 456 feet in the sky, and then dive down a 270-degree spiral. Feel like a blue angel. One of the greatest experiences ever.
Kingda Ka. Regardless of my thoughts of how to handle the situation, that will still not get rid of all the memories that we have made throughout the years. part of our daily park routine was to go straight to Kingda Ka so we wouldn't have to wait in line for it, and then lap Toro immediately after. But the undeniable best memory I have made was its last day of operation when the whole community came together in respect of Ka's legacy to get one final ride on this beast of a ride. My personal last ride was in the front row after a 30-minute station wait, and yes, tears were shed while exiting the ride. So, thank you Ka for the memories, and here's to hoping its replacement is just as good, if not better.
My thoughts on Kingda Ka, my favorite memory was always going on it. It was such an awesome ride, and going 0 to 128 and 456 feet up in the air. It was something we'll never experience ever again in our lifetime, and I'm very truly thankful and grateful that we got to have it at our home park and no one else's besides Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. But then my favorite other memory on Zumanjaro was when Kingda Ka and Zumanjaro would duel. And we'd always be like, come on, let's duel. And that was always fun. And I'm also wearing my first year shirt. This is the front. This is the back. And yeah, that was my favorite memory of Kingda Ka.
Hello, I'm Sam, and I had a lot of rides on Kingda Ka. My most memorable ride of Kingda Ka was probably in July of last year, 2024. And that was on my birthday, and that was also my first ever ride on Kingda Ka. And I never got to experience Zumanjaro because I was too scared to ride it. But if it was still open, I would go ride it.
My favorite memory of Kingda Ka would have to be those warm summer days when me and my friends would visit, and we would just non-stop re-ride Kingda Ka over and over again because we just loved the feeling of it. That launch was probably one of my favorite things about that ride, along with the soundtrack. The whole entire vibe was just energetic and probably one of my favorite things about it.
Favorite Kingda Ka memory? Definitely a tough one. Kind of took me a couple minutes to think about it because the last ride ever was awesome. Dispatching trains on it was awesome. But I feel like it all kind of starts where it began with my first ever ride. So on the first ever ride, because I just hit that height requirement, I'd never been up to like the Kingda Ka area pretty much. So I walk up into the station, you hear Safford Duo blasting. Like, you knew it was legit when you got up there, sitting down, pulling down the restraint, and just kind of like the tension building up, like, oh my god, I'm actually here. And then dispatching out onto the launch track. And I feel like it had been down for a while because when we kind of did the first little initial rollback onto the catch dog, the horn went off and I was like, oh my god, I'm actually doing this. And then just that first ever initial launch on Kingda Ka, it was incredible. Nothing beats the first time on Kingda Ka. And that's kind of why I chose that memory. But Kingda Ka has always meant something to me ever since I rode it, and it will live on. Long live the king.
I have so many great memories with both Kingda Ka and Zumanjaro. Some of my favorite memories include going on the backstage tour during Riding of the Bull 2019, where we were able to roam around the infield, stand right by the launch track. It was fantastic. And then the last ride I got was also great. So many enthusiasts there that day, and in the station I even got to see a rollback. Was so close to getting it though, but I digress. And then for Zumanjaro, weirdly enough, one of my favorite memories is when a big group of us were walking there and we were playing taps because El Toro was closed.
I didn't get my first rides on Kingda Ka until August of 2024, and I'll never forget riding it for the first time. My favorite memory though was that same day I took my first ever ride in the front row, and the power of the wind going down that launch track was unbelievable. Never in my life had I felt like my face was about to get ripped off. I will miss riding Kingda Ka a whole bunch.
I had so much fun seeing the final rollback of Kingda Ka. Long live the king!
My Kingda Ka memories go all the way back to 2004 when the ride was first announced and being built, and there was nothing cooler than watching this thing take shape and changing the Great Adventure skyline and the skyline of my hometown. My fun fact growing up was always that this was in my backyard. Whenever I was meeting new people, I loved to tell them that this is what I had in my hometown, and I will miss having that icon around, but shout out to Hollywood Studios for getting all those Kingda Ka and Zumanjaro marathons on video, and whenever I find myself missing those rides, I will definitely be going back to watch those.
For Ka and Zumanjaro, I have a ton of memories. I mean, I've been riding both for 10 or more years. I rode Kingda Ka back when I was 12 years old. I operated both rides. But for Zumanjaro, I'm going to say my most memorable experience was probably my first time ever on it a few days after its opening day. I mean, it was my second ever drop tower. It was the first one that was, actually large. And I was so scared, but it ended up being one of my favorite rides in the park, and it was truly an unforgettable ride. For Ka, it's the opposite. It was my last time on it. I had the great chance of riding the very last train ever, which was the employee train, and that same night I even got to go up to the top of Kingda Ka, and that was an unforgettable experience, and it was incredible.
Long live the king.
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 Long live the king.